All right, so the Heat, of course, are coming off of what I think is a really nice win last night over a scrappy Oklahoma City team, a Thunder team dealing with injuries as well. That's, I think, a lot better than people thought they were going to be this year. The Heat very shorthanded last night. And joining us here, we have former Miami Heat head coach, but of course, current TNT broadcaster, Stan Van Gundy. Stan, been a long time since we've spoken to you. I appreciate you hanging out with us here today. We had a really good game last night, I thought. That must have been an entertaining game for you guys to call, right?
Yeah, it certainly was. We thought it would be a pretty good game. Like both of those teams, they both play very, very hard and with great energy. But then when Miami had four starters out, you didn't really know what to expect. But I don't know that any team in the league over the last few years has played shorthanded better than the Heat have played. I think part of it is Eric Spoelstra never flinches. I mean, he just takes who he's got and gets them ready to play and expects them to play well. And they usually come through for him, and they certainly did last night.
This has been a tough year, which is getting better. I really like the way the team has played lately. But one thing that I've said to the Heat fan this season is, listen, literally every season of Eric Spoelstra's coaching career with the Heat, the team has gotten better throughout the season. They are better in the second half of the year than they are in the first half of the year. That's pretty impressive to be able to do that, Stan. Like literally every single season that he's coached the team, they are better by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think part of it is just that's his approach, is just to keep getting better every day. He does a great job of navigating through the highs and lows of the season, doesn't get real high, doesn't get real low, just continues to forge ahead. And he's got great belief in his players and their team. I personally think this roster's good enough to contend, but what's important is Eric Spoelstra genuinely believes that it is. And I think that helps them moving forward.
All right, let's talk about I don't know, maybe it was the big story from last night. So all of a sudden you're doing the game and you see a massage gun fly onto the floor. Like, did you have any idea what happened? I know you guys were watching the replay, like, oh, that's how it got there. Did you know Dedmon was having an argument? Like, what was your vantage point?
Yeah, no, when it first came onto the floor, we had no idea what was going on. And then with the replay, you could see that he had gotten into an argument with Eric about something. Who knows? Those kind of things happen all the time. And I don't think by any means he meant to throw anything on the floor. I think he was just slapping down on it and going to throw it off the chair, and the thing went flying. So I don't think that was Dwayne Dedmon's intent. But there's no question at that point that he was going to get tossed. And either way, very irresponsible and immature on Dedmon's part, particularly on a night where the Heat only had 9 guys, one of them being Udonis Haslem, who very rarely plays. So, an unfortunate moment, but again, the Heat were able to overcome it.
So what happens now today as a former head coach? What happens today? The Joe Dumars, the league office, they call the Heat. They're like, hey, it's unacceptable behavior. A fan could have been cracked in the back of the head. We got, like, there needs to be some kind of punishment. How does this get handled now today?
Well, the league office may have something to say. It could be, as simple as a fine. I think it would be hard to look at that and see any attempt, intent. But there could be a suspension. I mean, it is a dangerous thing. So we'll just have to see. Certainly he and Eric will talk. Probably Pat Riley will talk to it. There may be some internal discipline as well. But the main thing is, you let down your teammates. I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing with the entire incident, is on a night where you're shorthanded and everybody's fighting like hell, you didn't care enough about your teammates.
Obviously the team, Spo, they don't like that Dedmon was leaving the game. They don't like that he got that he got ejected. But when Stephanie Reddy is talking to him, going into the fourth quarter, and she asks him what happened there, I feel like there is a part of Spo and the team that loves being able to say, that's a Tuesday night for the Miami Heat organization. It's no big deal. I feel like they love that part.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly a part of them that does. And I don't think, we were talking about it after the game last night with our TV crew walking back to the hotel. I said, I don't think there's any coach in the league that rolls with the punches better than Eric. I mean, we have those conflicts, and it just does not bother him. I mean, I think he understands. I think one of the great things, and there's a lot of them, but one of the great things about Spo is he understands the heat of the moment and the emotion of players. And I think the Heat like emotional, passionate players. And one of the things that goes with that are incidents like last night where people maybe go over the line a little bit, and Eric just rolls with it, and again, I think it's one of his great strengths.
It's funny that you say that, because I remember having a conversation, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago with Ron Rothstein, where his biggest praise, or one of his biggest praises for Spo was, he told me he's never seen a coach who handles adversity as well as Eric Spoelstra does. Never seen it. Best he's ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, from the outside, obviously I know Eric well, but I haven't worked with him when he's been a head coach. But from the outside, I would tend to agree with that. And I would certainly trust Ron on it, because Ron's been around, and Ron's been around great coaches. Let's face it. I mean, he worked for Chuck Daly, he worked Riley. So Ron's seen great coaches. And for him to say that, I don't think it's probably an exaggeration at all. It certainly looks that way from the outside. Eric is just one that every day he's coming to work to get better and doesn't let a lot bother him.
Stan, after a game like last night where the Heat shoot 40 free throws, very cool, by the way, that the NBA record gets set on what ended up being the game-winning free throw with Jimmy Butler. The Heat go 40 for 40. Jimmy himself shoots more free throws than Oklahoma City. So after a game like that, as a coach, is the first place you go to, that's bullshit, we got hosed, referees did a terrible job tonight? Or is it actually possible that one team gets fouled more than the other team last night?
Oh, they did. I mean, I didn't, in calling the game, I never at any point thought there were a lot of calls missed or non-calls missed. I mean, the Thunder are a very young, energetic, hard-playing, intense team. I think what Mark Daigneault has done with that group, one of the youngest in NBA history, is incredible. They're just outside of the top 10 defensively, but their intensity outweighs their discipline right now. Guys continue to just leave their feet trying to contest shots when Jimmy Butler would shot fake and things. I would rather have that as a coach, that you're going to have to rein guys in a little bit than to have to try to get them to play hard. So that team's taken a huge step in their development, but the next big step defensively is better discipline. They didn't show it last night, and it's what beat them. I mean, look, the Heat only shot 39%. They shot 30% from three, and they had 20 turnovers. So Oklahoma City did a lot of good things defensively, but their lack of discipline and their unnecessary fouls in the end beat them. And what's amazing about the Heat going 40 for 40 is, like Rob Wilson texted me after the game and said, 40 for 40, and they literally need every single one of them.
Yeah.
39 for 40 would not have won that game. Yeah. So it was really, it was a strange game. You just don't see games like that, obviously. But Jimmy's ability to get to the line is ultimately what won the game. I'm surprised. I know he's great drawing fouls, but he's not any long, great shooter from the floor. I'm just surprised that more players don't go into it with a great discipline that, you know what, I'm going to make the guy make shots to beat us. If he can make enough jump shots to beat us, but I'm not fouling.
I mean, Wade was a little better from that mid range area, but I mean, we were saying
No,
it
he was a
about Dwayne
lot better.
forever, you know?
Nah, Dwayne was a lot better. I mean, in terms of his ability to shoot ball. I'm talking about it than what Jimmy is now.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy in the past, yeah, has been a great, great player. And he's still a good player.
Yeah.
But if Jimmy, I mean, Jimmy's scoring 30% of his points from the free throw line. I mean, you've got to cut those things down. Look, to me, Zaz, like as a coach, when you're playing against the great players, you're not going to stop those guys. You're just not. I mean, if there was a foolproof way to stop those guys, they wouldn't be who they are. So what you're looking to do is limit their efficiency. And to me, it was always, okay, we're going to get back in transition. We're going to take away those easy buckets. Jimmy doesn't get a lot of those. I do think he had one last night. I'm not going to give them back cuts and things like that for easy layups. We're not going to miss helps. But one of the biggest ones when we prepared to play Stars was we're not fouling this guy, you know, especially on jump shots and things. You're going to stay down on fakes. We are not fouling this guy. He's going to, if he comes in and look, both Wade and LeBron had 50-point nights against my teams in games we ended up winning. Okay. Anthony Davis beat with 59 one night when I was in Detroit. But it's tough for guys night in and night out to put up big numbers if they're not getting to the line and making free throws.
You know, one of the injuries have been obviously the major problem for the Heat this year, but for a team that didn't add anyone in the offseason, it had to come from internal growth was the way that this team was going to improve upon last year. I think that we've seen it from Bam. He's really turned into a reliable offensive player really over the last month or so. And another one of those difference makers, internal growth that you were hoping for. And it's only been for a few games now, but Stan, I think Victor Oladipo is he's pretty close to getting back. I mean, is he going to be the all-star from Indiana? Probably not, but he's pretty close to being a pretty good player again. What do you think?
Well, I totally agree with you. I agree with you on Bam, who had an incredible road trip. Wasn't as good against Brooklyn the other night. I think Claxton's length. It's the one thing that still bothers Bam, and there's very few guys who can match up with him. But if you're quick enough to move your feet with him and you've got length, Bam is undersized. He has a little problem with that. I thought Claxton bothered him. But on the road trip, the guy was incredible. I mean, he lit it up. He didn't miss any shots. So I agree with you on that one. And yeah, I think Oladipo's the key guy. He's looking very good right now. But he's really a necessity for them, minus a move that they might make, a trade. Because look, last year, what happened of here, those guys, they got great play out of those, you know, and all of those guys have dropped off now, you know, and not to be cruel, but those undrafted guys now, they look like undrafted guys. You know, Gabe Vincent has struggled mightily. Hasn't at least so far this year looked like even close to the player. Strus had a good night last night. Hopefully for them, that will propel him. He has struggled. The Duncan Robinson drop off from year to year over the last 4 years is almost inexplicable, from unbelievable in the year they went to the finals to not quite as good, but still very good the next year, to mediocre last. So while all of those complimentary guys have dropped off, that void, to me, it's Victor Oladipo. He's got the talent over the last 6 or 7 games. You've seen signs that his athleticism is back. Now it's just sort of getting the rust off and getting the timing back. But if he played at in the past, that's a huge boost to Heat. I don't think it's enough, quite honestly, to put them up there with Boston and Milwaukee, but I think they can be a tough out in the playoffs.
You know, Stan, finally here, before I let you go, I got to talk to you about what's been a consistent theme on my show and really one of the biggest topics in the league this year. Unfortunately, the load management drives me crazy, Stan. You know, coming from a fan perspective, a lot of teams charge more money for the better teams, you know, that are coming to town, the star players. And, you know, I want to take my kid to a game. I'm spending a ton of money. I find out an hour and a half before game time that, you know, player X is not playing. Where do you stand there? Like, how do we fix this? Like, what do we do about it? Because from a fan perspective, it's brutal, Stan.
No, I totally agree with you. I think it's the biggest problem in terms of the business of the NBA right now. You know, we feel it as a TV network, and it will be interesting when the TV negotiations come up again, because I know that my bosses feel it. You know, these games are scheduled in advance. Here you come on a national game, and last night the Heat have 4 starters out. You know, we've had games all year where you show up and the stars are out. TNT's first game on Thursday night is Boston and Brooklyn. Marquee game. Everybody's excited. Oh, Kevin Durant now is out. Now, those are injuries.
Yeah.
But to me, Zaz, the most interesting thing about the load management, and to be clear, the load management goes beyond the games, okay? Teams don't practice anywhere near the way they used to. A lot of teams don't go over to the arena, walk through the game, everything, rest. And yet injuries, legitimate injuries, continue to go up and up and up. And that, to me, is the problem. The load management, the philosophy of the more rest, the better, it's not working. And quite honestly, where I stand on it, the problem, I think, is these guys aren't conditioned the way they need to be to play an 82-game NBA season. And the ones that really stand out are not the Durant injuries. You know, Jimmy fell on his leg. There's not a damn he can do about that. You know, I mean, you got Duncan Robinson. I mean, there's no conditioning to be had there. But we've got a lot of guys, and I'm not going to name names. We've got a lot of guys going out for a long time with hamstring injuries and groin injuries, soft tissue type stuff. Conditioning has a lot to do with that. And you can't just simply rest, and then I'm going to go out and go full speed in an NBA game and think your body's going to be ready for that. So I don't agree with the approach that the league has taken. And I mean teams around the league to, you know, they'll go in the weight room, they'll do all that. But basketball players need to play basketball. They need to practice basketball to get ready, and they're not. And I think that's the bigger problem right now. I don't see a lot of guys sitting out for just straight load management this year. There's some, but I think a lot of it is we just have more injuries. We're not getting guys ready to play the NBA game. And then, you know, guys sit out longer and longer with injuries. Guys don't play through things like they used to. And it would be hard for anybody to argue that. And I think part of it is, you know, Zaz, they look at guys and what they're paying them. And, you know, I hear all the time, we've got to protect our investment. You know, they don't want an injury to turn into a long-term thing. And while that's legitimate thinking, who we leave out on that is exactly who you said, the fans. And what I think everyone in pro sports has to understand is the fans are what drives the entire business. We have no league. The players don't make those salaries. The coaches don't make those salaries. None of that stuff happens without the fans. And we've got to, as a league, show the fans a lot more respect than what I have seen.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm glad you said that. Real quick here, lastly, Stan, when you talk to someone who loves the Heat the way that I do all of these years, and certainly people have been in the organization for many, many years, maybe save for the two championships in 2012, 2013. But you ask a lot of people what's their favorite Miami Heat team of all time. And I'll still tell you, that 2004 team, there was something special about it. Okay. I look back so fondly from that team that you coached in Wade's rookie year, Lamar Odom, Caron Butler. Do you look back at that team as fondly still?
Yeah, I mean, that year was a lot of fun. I was very, very fortunate to be in that situation. Malik Allen and Ron Butler, both Heat assistants. I got there early last night, and they came out on the floor early before they worked guys out. And, we got to talking about that with Rob Wilson and Steve Stowe and Dave Byer and some old-time Heat people. And, yeah, it was a special group because, we had really good young players but got off to an awful start and hung in there and won 17 of our last 21 and ended up in the second round of the playoffs and lost a pretty competitive 6-game series to
Indiana,
to the Pacers. Yeah. But but we, Dwayne, obviously, the way he played in the playoffs and everything else, everybody got to see the future, but those other guys too. I mean, Lamar Odom had a great year, and it was just it was a fun year. It was an exciting year. It was coming off of, a couple of rebuilding years. And so people were sort of hungry for it. And, a lot of times the best times in sports are when something sort of unexpected happens. And nobody expected us to be where we were at the end of the year. We certainly did a great job of lowering expectations early in the year, and then it exploded. But that was a great group of people and a lot of fun. It was a coaching staff that I absolutely loved with, Eric and Bob McAdoo, Keith Askins. It was a special year. You would have liked to have, been able to get a couple more wins and move on, but it was a special season.
This was fun, Stan. I appreciate you spending some time with us here today. It sounds like you think that the Heat, that the second half, that we're gonna have a good second half as long as we get healthy. You're pretty confident in them.
Yeah, I just don't know if you can count on the health. I mean, the Heat haven't been healthy for a couple of years, and let's face it. I mean, if I had to bet, I would say that Jimmy Butler is going to miss another 12 to 15 games over the rest of the year. I mean, that's where Jimmy's been the last couple of years, problems with that knee and injury management. So the Heat aren't the only team by any means that can say, well, if we stay healthy. The Clippers are saying if we stay healthy. Milwaukee is saying if we stay healthy. Philly is saying if Joel Embiid stays healthy. So when I hear that across the league now, I feel like saying, join the pack. Nobody is playing fully healthy out here. So, and I think that's why Eric Spoelstra's approach is so important. You don't hear Eric talking about that. He talks about what they need to do better, not, well, if this and if that, because he knows. He doesn't have any control over that. So whoever goes out there every day has got to play better. And that's why you get wins like last week from the Miami Heat, because of that approach. They're not going out there saying, okay, hopefully we'll get those guys back on Thursday and on Saturday and be ready to play the Bucks. They're saying, you know what? Jamal Cain, Orlando Robinson, Haywood Highsmith, let's go. Let's go out and get a win tonight and expect them to play that is another big part, I think, of Eric Spoelstra's greatness as a coach is, that's what he's promoted since day one here.
Great job, Stan. Thanks a lot for joining us today. Safe travels. I appreciate you very much.
All right, Zaz, have a good one.
All right, see ya.